All right, welcome back, ladies and gents. Welcome back to the Bitcoin Analysis Show. We have got a lot of price action to cover on this Friday edition of the Financial Summit YouTube channel. We have got some big breakout news to be discussing here. I want to talk to you about where I think Bitcoin can go, if I think Bitcoin can pump through that $70,000 resistance, potentially set a brand new all-time high, or if this is just one big nasty bull trap and we're going to be coming back down. So that's the question of the day today. Of course, as you are coming in, thank you all very much for tuning in. Make sure that you do hit the like button for this YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed, and if you want to see more of my own content right after this live stream, I am actually going live on my own YouTube channel. You can find the link to my channel in the description below. I'm going to go in a lot of depth about all of this and also cover questions and stuff like that here. But if you have questions for this stream, please do drop it here and I will be happy to go through it with you. So starting off, Bitcoin managed to pump past its $66,000 area of resistance. We initially saw two small corrections, but I think it was actually pretty good. It came down to good levels, 64.6. This was roughly, the kind of area that we were topping out at before. This is roughly the kind of area that we were finding a little bit of resistance at, just going back to the very beginning of this month. So a pretty good place to start seeing some bounces coming in for the market off that mid $64,000 range. And from there, we managed to pump right through our 67K area of resistance. So this resistance is interesting because it's not just one flat line like I've got drawn here, but it's more so like roughly about $1,000 range. And I've actually got it illustrated on this chart really nicely as a danger zone, basically, this red danger zone. And for me, the way this red zone behaves for the market is when you enter the box, you're getting more and more resistance. In the middle of the box at this line, you've got the most resistance. And as you leave, you're getting less resistance, right? So that's why I'm calling it a zone. The middle is the toughest resistance, and either side, it's starting to taper off, which means that as far as I'm concerned, we have tackled the most important part of the resistance now. I think that we've gotten above the heaviest, scariest, most challenging part of the resistance as it stands right now. And that gives me a nice bit of confidence that we should be able to continue trading on higher. Ultimately, the way I see it, this chart only has a few distinct levels, and I want to draw them out for you clean again on this chart without bias, just so that we can kind of really understand what we're talking about here. And it's really just every spike on this volume profile. Let me see if I can extend it out if it's got any new kind of information. Hasn't really changed. And it's really just, you've got a nice big spike over here. So this sits at about $63,000. You've got another nice spike right where we are right now. In fact, we're ever so slightly above it. And that's pretty much it as far as I'm concerned. We've got some we've got some smaller areas of resistance up ahead, which we're going to be talking about in this live stream today. But these are the kind of key levels that I'm seeing on the chart, right? And so once you pump above, for example, this zone of resistance, it was previously, pretty decent resistance. I was talking to you guys about this in the last shows, about how it's really important that we get above this level. Once we get above this level, it becomes a case of, okay, we got to hit this next zone of resistance. Once you get above this level, it's the same thing for the next zone, right? When you break one ceiling, when you've broken the ceiling, you come up and you hit the next ceiling, right? And that's very, very standard price action for any market. So I do think that now that next zone of resistance, quite plain and simple, is going to be up at about the $70,000 area, $69,000 area, basically the previous Bitcoin all-time high that we were just kind of tapping over here, and of course that we set back in 2021. So that's what I'm seeing there from that particular perspective, and I don't think it's going to be a particularly big challenge. I think that if and when Bitcoin can get above this level with some real conviction, perhaps with a daily time frame close, which we're still about 8 hours away from getting. So that's still a third of the day left. I don't want to act like, this is a given and that anything is guaranteed at this stage, but, it's looking pretty good so far. But, with a nice daily close, let's say 1 percentage point above, which would be at about $68,000, that's going to give me a little bit more confidence that, we have broken the resistance. And then, from there, we can do a couple different things. I'm not really too bothered about what we do just because of how well we've moved up. But one of the first things that I think we could do is trade sideways. If we manage to trade sideways for a little bit, that might be a bit of a correction. Of course, we are very familiar with the market and how the markets tend to correct. But to go over that, because this is something I like to focus on, the market typically produces two types of corrections. And the first type of correction is where the price trends down. The second type of correction is where the price moves sideways. And this is a very useful thing to keep in mind because in the first instance, actually, I think I should illustrate it more like this. In the first instance, you are getting hurt by the price dropping, but in the second instance, you are getting hurt by being bored. And so those are really the two ways that the market can correct and make traders feel pain. And we've already seen the price-based correction, right? We've already seen that here where the price went up to about the mid 65s and then fell all the way back down to $60,000. That's a really nice price based correction. It happens across 4 days. But of course, we've also seen time based corrections, right? Here's a beautiful time based correction here where we're more or less just trading sideways for 4 days. Obviously, the time frames are very similar, but you've got to keep in mind the environment that these moves happened in. The market was a hell of a lot less volatile here than it was here. And so a 4 day consolidation period here is a much bigger deal, than 4 days of correcting down here. Everything's relative, and I think when people lose sight of that, when people kind of forget these things, that's when they start walking into trouble. So I'd love to see a little bit of sideways consolidation here. I think that would really open it up. And if Bitcoin does end up retracing, then again, the great thing that Bitcoin has on this chart now is a lot of support. The fact that Bitcoin has managed to get above a lot of resistance levels now means that it has a lot of support levels, and that's going to be great to kind of soften the landing for Bitcoin should it start moving back down again. And I'm sure there's some indicators I can start pointing to as well that are going to show similar things, right? Here's the hourly Ichimoku cloud. We've now seen a bit of a trend starting to develop. And probably just in the next couple of hours, we're going to see the hourly Ichimoku cloud lining up with the 66K range where we were finding a little bit of a challenge. So super short term, but a possible zone of support over there. Zoom out onto the 4-hour time frame, and we have started to develop a nice, confident Ichimoku cloud down in the $63,000 range. I really like this. I think that this is a really nice zone of support for Bitcoin to capture. It would be a nice pullback from here. We've already seen one nice pullback, and we know what happens when we get nice pullbacks. We start to move up very nicely as well. And so I would love to see a pullback down into this $63,000 range. And if that did end up happening, that does put us down by about 6.5% compared to the previous drop, which was about 8%. So yeah, pretty much in line with a nice correction for this kind of move. So that would definitely be cool. And on the daily, we've bounced out of the Ichimoku cloud again. So on the daily time frame, this support indicator has already proven useful. A very, very nice indicator that I love to use. The other indicator, and I've only got two that I like to use personally, is the EMA ribbon. And this has already provided phenomenal support for Bitcoin here on the hourly. Ever since it flipped bullish over here, we've seen a nice bounce off it here, a very confident bounce off it over here, and another nice bounce right here. So beautiful stuff over there. Super happy with the performance here on the hourly. On the 4-hour, we haven't fallen down into it yet. So there might be some cause for a reversal on this slightly larger time frame. And on the daily, we are now flipping bullish. So we are starting to see that our shorter term indicators are flipping above our longer term indicators here, potentially indicating that the price will be reversing now for this longer term time frame here. So that's something that's worth keeping an eye out for. And I think that this is really dependent on traditional finance. We've seen the S&P 500 maintain its highs over here above its previous all-time high. It is a bit of a down day for the S&P 500. Actually since Thursday, we started to see a little bit of a drop here, and that's continued on in Friday's trading session today. But there's still a long time left for the S&P 500 session today. We've still got over 3.5 hours left until this session closes. This weekly session closes as well. And we are doing pretty well above the previous all-time high. This could definitely be a new zone of support for the S&P 500. It was clearly a new zone of resistance. And so I wouldn't be surprised if it kind of comes back down. Obviously, everybody and their grandmother wants to see these gaps getting filled. So, I'm not closed off to that either. It comes back down, captures a little bit of support over here, and then continues to move on upwards. And I think it's still a pretty optimistic climate from that particular perspective. Bitcoin's dominance has taken a small step backwards and it has moved down just a little bit. I'm not concerned about this. I think that the move is set in stone at this stage, and I think that we are going to continue to climb with Bitcoin's dominance. I would still have the same opinion if we dropped all the way down here, even down to about 53% or even lower. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen, but I think that we are still poised to see Bitcoin rise up to that 60% zone at least. And I think that that's going to be purely because, and this is something that I cover quite a bit, but when you're in a situation in the market where you can make money from Bitcoin, then you're not going to be interested as much in taking risks in altcoins, right? Let me just say that again. When you are trading Bitcoin and Bitcoin is making you money, you don't really need to take the excess risk, the additional risk in altcoins to make money. You're already making money. It's when Bitcoin starts getting a little bit boring after you've made money, that's when you're going to start feeling greedy and you're going to start deciding that you need to take even more risk to scratch the same itch. And that's when altcoins start coming into play. Additionally, if we see Bitcoin crashing, and that's what I want to talk to you about next because it's been a pretty bullish video so far, pretty bullish live stream. If we do see Bitcoin crashing, well, then you definitely don't want to be in additional risk. You just want to sell your altcoins and hold the more stable asset. And that's why over the last year and a half now, since the beginning of 2023, which was when the uptrend started roughly, we have seen Bitcoin's dominance rise from 40% up to 55. That's a 15-point increase here. That is absolutely massive. That is absolutely massive. And the altcoin market destruction shows that. Actually, just curious now, I know this is not typically what I look at, but Solana has pumped right up into a very interesting zone of resistance. So there could be some short plays here. Bitcoin is, of course, at macro resistance. So I think one of the key things I would be interested in seeing is if sentiment is very bullish at this stage, at resistance, that could definitely mean short-term trouble. That doesn't mean that we can't go up to 70K, but it could mean short-term trouble. And that's what I was discussing with you guys when looking at these support levels, because we do have really nice support if we drop lower. I don't want to assume that this is the high because the price is currently still quite close to that high. But if we do start drawing some fib levels here, look at what we have on this chart. It is beautiful. We've got a beautiful 618 retracement down here and a beautiful 382 retracement up here. Very, very nice, respectable levels for Bitcoin to drop down to. Again, I'm not saying that this is the top. We don't really know that yet, right? I mean, we set the high at 67.5 and we're at 67.2. It's negligible. It's not even like 0.5% away, or roughly is about 0.5% away, right? So, we're basically right at the high. But if this does end up being the high, right, or if we just punch in that high slightly higher, we've got really nice Fibonacci retracements here, for the market to take advantage of. And if you believe that the market will continue to behave in healthy ways, then that's probably going to be something that you find exciting. Now, it's worth noting on the upside here, like I said at the very beginning of the live stream, I do think that there's not a whole lot standing between Bitcoin and getting up to that crucial $70,000 price level. If we don't form that reversal and we just continue flying, if the S&P 500 continues looking great and so on and so forth, then I think it's very much possible that Bitcoin blasts through this resistance. I don't actually think that this resistance is particularly threatening for Bitcoin. I think that Bitcoin is at the final significant resistance on its chart right now as we speak. And so I think that if Bitcoin can get up here, it's probably going to have a pretty easy time breaking it. And naturally, I don't think there's a whole lot of resistance around the all-time high as well, right? We might get some consolidation, we might get some sort of a pullback, but put it this way, these kind of resistance levels, they were a little bit more of a wild card. This one, a little bit more of a wild card. But when you start breaking these really tough zones of resistance, I just can't be particularly worried about the softer zones of resistance up ahead. And so I'd be looking to see them break. And I would be looking to see a 74, 75, $80,000 Bitcoin even. There's a lot that goes into where Bitcoin could go after this, and I don't really want to get into those discussions for this particular stream. But one of them that I do want to show, and the reason I don't want to get into them is because they're a little bit too subjective. They're very like moon boy hype mentality stuff, and that's just not really where I live. That's not really what I'm interested in. But I do want to point out one particular chart, if I can find it, just while we're here, which does indicate some very interesting potential upside for Bitcoin. I'm not sure if I am able to find it. Yeah, we've had this. I don't know if this shows up on screen. No, it doesn't. We've had this interesting triangle breakout. Let me throw this up on this chart right here, on this screen right here. This is a chart from a few days ago, and yeah, we've seen a nice kind of continuation. The price is now trading at about over here, so we've really started to meet the potential of this particular symmetrical triangle. I'll just show you what that looks like on this chart in case that was confusing. It is basically this triangle right around over here. And if we try and kind of measure the height, this is very rough. It's not going to be exact. And then extrapolate a target from that, we are well on our way to that $68,000 price target depicted here in this chart. And we've got longer term versions of the same thing that are basically indicating $80,000. So I'm not saying that this is a particularly reliable way to do analysis. I don't think it is, personally. Here is the other one that I wanted to show you guys. I don't think this is necessarily a particularly reliable way of carrying out analysis, but it's worked out so far, and I think that must be worth something. So this range, 20%, 20% upside from the breakout does put us at about $76,000. So there you go. I hope you have enjoyed this stream. If you have, you know exactly what to do. I am going to be live on my own YouTube channel right now after this one, and I've got a couple more bits that I want to be sharing. So if you want to hear more of my thoughts, and if you want to go over altcoin setups as well with me in my stream, then definitely check that out with the link in the description. I'm going to be outlining trade setups I'm looking at in this market as well. Definitely make sure that you are subscribed to this YouTube channel and that you've hit the likes up on this live stream. Thank you all for tuning in. I will see you again on Monday. I believe Monday will be a solo show. I'm not sure if Mike is going to be joining, so that might be just me again. But I will see you all again in just a few days, and we'll be able to see what a closed Friday session has looked like for the S&P 500 and what that Monday open is going to look like as well. So I think that's going to be a very important show. Definitely make sure that you're not missing that by staying subscribed to this channel. All right. Thank you all very much. And I'll see you all in the next.